Some people said they were curious how my cockpit looked like, so I thought I'd do a video and maybe I can give you some tips or inspiration for your own cockpit. Or maybe you have tips for me, and then please leave them in the comments below. Of course I say cockpit, but that's within quotation marks because obviously this is not a real cockpit, and especially this place is also my home office. Especially during the pandemic, this is my working place, so I need to be able to get things out of the way when possible. And that puts a lot of restrictions on what I can build. Okay, so let's do a tour. So my main screen is a 34-inch curved monitor with on top a webcam that I don't use for flight sim but for video conferencing, and the IR head tracker camera. On the left I have an additional screen that I use for other programs like my charts, and the online connection software, TeamSpeak to talk to my friends and other things. In front I have a small tablet, which in this case shows the main instruments of a Boeing 737. By the way, I'm flying XPlane right now with the Zibo mod. And I use XTextureExtractor to get the images here on this tablet in front. A small keyboard here. And my yoke is a VirtualFly Yoko Plus. When I started flight simming in 1992, I began with the CH Pilot and moved up to the CH Pilot Pro, then the SciTech, and now it's the VirtualFly Yoko Plus. On the left, recently I got this StreamDeck, and I bought that because when I started with the Microsoft Flight Simulator I didn't have everything programmed for Microsoft Flight Simulator, so I thought let's have some push buttons. And right now I use it, for example, to reset the TrackIR or make screenshots, things like that, call the fuel truck, so these kind of functions. Below the desk are my rudder pedals. These are MFG Crosswinds, and there I have a little box which I use to put these on when I need them out of the way. It also kind of hides the mess, although it's still a mess, but it's even bigger underneath there. And of course this also helps when pushing, that these rudder pedals don't slide on the floor. If we go to the right, you see my GoFlight console. Here with the autopilot, com radios, a lot of other functions like GPS. Here's my throttle quadrant. I used to have the GoFlight TQ6, but that gave more and more spikes, so I now replaced it with the VirtualFly TQ6. And some other functions like here ADF, transponder and other functions, navigation radios, and landing, trim and flaps. On the left is a little tablet for the CDU, and I use the XPlaneCDU software to get the CDU running up there. And additionally I also made some knobs and buttons here on the side, because they just feel a little bit better. So now I have here this, say, the parking brake, the gear horn cutout, the fuel cutoff switches, and this one I use when flying in general aviation aircraft for the fuel selector. Okay, moving up. Here you see my headset with the TrackIR infrared LEDs. Here's the remote control for the ButtKicker, and I forgot to show you that when we were down here. So on my chair, this is the ButtKicker that gives vibrations to the chair. Here you see the CPFlight MCP, the Pro version. used for the autopilot things. Up here we have the this one. That's the amplifier for the ButtKicker. And here is a homemade panel. This is actually the first one I made that I made myself. I got a little microcontroller from a friend for my 50th birthday. And I thought, well, what shall I do with it? And I just, well, why don't I try to make a flight sim panel? And that's how it kind of started. So this is it also had backlights. I don't know if you can see it on camera. Yeah, a little bit. So these are actually backlit. So if you know the 737, you see that it's not a really a good panel. So this is for if you start, but for example, the switch doesn't come back. Also these for the starters. So what I did, instead of jumping back automatically, this LED lights up if I have to turn it by hand. So that's my compromise in that. On top here you see a panel for the air conditioning. And this is my air conditioning. It can get hot in this room, so that's to provide some cool air. Underneath here you see the main panel. And there's a display here. I don't know if I can show it to you on screen. And so it has the some basic functions like the trim setting, flap settings, also the 6 packs. So I can press the button here, the recall, and then you see them light up. And this little display here, it now shows the exhaust gas temperature of the APU, but I have a switch here that I can use to toggle them. So now I have the fuel temperature, the brake pressure, but I can also show cabin altitude, cabin climb, and duct pressure. So this way I still have a lot of instruments without having to use a lot of hardware. So this, yeah, what can I tell you more about this? Well, of course, it can also actually dim. I don't know if you can see it on camera. And the test function also works. So that's that. Yeah, this is just a microphone for video conferencing when I'm at work. So if you go to the left, underneath this monitor, you see another panel. This one is kind of special, and I'm pretty proud of it that I made this, because it has displays underneath the switches. So these indicate what's the function of these switches, and they change depending on the aircraft that's loaded. So I don't know if you can see it well on camera, but here it says it detects that it's a Boeing 737-800 as an aircraft, and it loads the B738 panel. I also use this for a general aviation aircraft, where you then would have the battery and the alternator switches, and also the start switch, which is actually pretty cool to start an aircraft like that. So I hope this gives a kind of a short overview of this cockpit. If you want a little bit more technical details, then well, ask in the comments. And I'll be happy to explain things for you. So in short, I'll put the, let's say the standard stuff in the links below. But for example, this unit is powered by an Arduino. Here these extra knobs are powered by an ESP8266 that's located within. This one is powered by a Raspberry Pi, because I needed to display stuff on this screen. Here is an ESP8266, and this one is powered by a Pokies interface board. Okay, when I stopped the video, I realized I forgot a few things to show about the lighting. For example, this panel here, it's also dimmable. So if you see, I can turn this knob and you will dim this, and also the screen can be dimmed. I don't know if this is visible on camera. Yeah, a little bit. I can dim the screen. And this one has the displays, but it turns out that in a dark room it's still difficult to find the buttons, so that's why you can also turn on the light here and also dim the lights here if you want. So that's also a kind of a neat feature.